Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the M&T Show here. This is your guy, Tyler, here. Mike's not available tonight. I want to welcome everybody. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you so much here. Please don't. Thank you. Thank you kindly. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. So today we're going to go over a few different articles. Here I got three of them. One of them is the full list of Republicans who voted against FEMA funding before Helene hit. One of them goes over a current incident that happened in Idaho, and the other one goes about how Barack Obama hit swing states to stump for Kamala Harris as election nears. So as we are aware, a lot of the eastern states here, like Florida, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and a few other states have been affected by Hurricane Helene. I want to wish my condolences and my grace to the people affected to this huge disaster. I can't even fathom with what families are going through down there at this time. I know this was the biggest hurricane that they have ever experienced here. The first article, it comes from Newsweek. It is a centrist-based news company. The title of it's called "Full List of Republicans Who Voted Against FEMA Funding Before Helene Hit." It was published on October 4th, 2024, so basically yesterday. It was written by Khalida Rahman, a national correspondent. As Hurricane Helene careened towards Florida's panhandle, numerous Republicans voted against extending funding for the Federal Emergency Management Agency, aka FEMA. Last week, Congress approved $20 billion for FEMA's Disaster Relief Fund as part of a stopgap spending bill to fund the government through December 20th, 2024. But the measure left out billions of dollars in requested supplemental disaster funding. The Senate approved the measure by a 78-18 vote on September 25th after it passed the House in a 341-82 vote. Republicans supplied the no votes in both chambers. Some of the Republicans who voted against the bill represent states that have been hard hit by Helene, including Florida Representative Matt Gaetz. Helene hit Florida as a Category 4 storm last Thursday before plowing through several other states in the southeast. The devastation could cost up to $160 billion, according to an estimate by AccuWeather. Some Republicans rallied against FEMA funding being allocated for assisting migrants after Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas told reporters on Wednesday that FEMA will run out of money before the hurricane season is over. The agency is facing a multi-billion-dollar deficit even after imposing new spending restrictions. We are meeting the immediate needs with the money that we have. We are expecting another hurricane hitting, Mayorkas said. FEMA does not have the funds to make it through the season. Mayorkas' comments led some Republicans to accuse the Biden administration of diverting funds intended for disaster relief, which a Department of Homeland Security spokesperson told Newsweek was completely false. President Joe Biden said Monday he may call Congress back into session during a break to pass emergency supplemental funding, as some lawmakers from states hit by Helene have urged. Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson has said that FEMA funding included in the stopgap spending bill approved last week is sufficient and that there is no need for lawmakers to return early. Below are all the GOP lawmakers that voted against this bill. These are the people that voted against helping victims of Hurricane Helene. So if you need to, write it down. That way you can remember who not to vote for November 5th, 2024. So we're going to start off with the people in the House, and then once we get done with the people in the House, we're going to list all the Republicans in the Senate. So starting off, we have Representative James Baird of Indiana, that's Baird, Representative Troy Balderson of Ohio, Representative Jim Banks of Indiana, Representative Aaron Bean of Florida, Representative Andy Biggs of Arizona, Representative Gus Bill Rakis of Florida, last name Bilrakis, Representative Dan Bishop of North Carolina, Representative Lauren Boebert of Colorado, Representative Mike Bost of Illinois, Representative Josh Breshin of Oklahoma, Representative Tim Burchett of Tennessee, Representative Eric Burleson of Missouri, that's Burlison, Representative Kat, that's Kat, Cammack, Cammack of Florida, Representative Michael Cloud of Texas, Representative Andrew Clyde of Georgia, Representative Mike Collins of Georgia, Representative Ellie Crane of Arizona, that's Eli, last name Crane, Crane, Representative John Curtis of Utah, Representative Warren Davidson of Ohio, Representative Byron Donalds of Florida, Representative Jeff Duncan of South Carolina, Representative Ron Estes of Kansas, Representative Mike Ezell of Mississippi, Representative Randy Fenstra of Iowa. Randy's last name is Fenstra. Representative Brad Finstad of Minnesota, Representative Michelle Fishbach of Minnesota, Representative Russell Fry of South Carolina, Representative Russ Fulcher of Idaho, Representative Matt Gaetz of Florida, Representative Tony Gonzalez of Texas, Representative Bob Good of Virginia, Representative Lance Gooden of Texas, Representative Paul Gosar of Arizona, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia, Representative Morgan Griffith of Virginia, Representative Michael Guest of Mississippi, Representative Harry Hagerman of Wyoming, Representative Andy Harris of Maryland, Representative Clay Higgins of Louisiana, Representative Jim Jordan of Ohio, Representative John Joyce of Pennsylvania, Representative Trent Kelly of Mississippi, Representative Darren LaHood of Illinois, Representative Laurel Lee of Florida, Representative Debbie Lesko of Arizona, Representative Greg Lopez of Colorado, Representative Anna Paulina Luna of Florida, Representative Morgan Luttrell, that's Lutrell of Texas, Representative Nancy Mace of South Carolina, Representative Tracy Mann, Mann of Kansas, Representative Thomas Massey of Kentucky, Representative Tom McClintock of California, Representative Rich McCormick of Georgia, Representative Mary Miller of Illinois, Representative Max Miller of Ohio, Representative Corey Mills of Florida, Representative Alex Mooney of West Virginia, Representative Barry Moore of Alabama, Representative Nathaniel Moran of Texas, that's Moran, Representative Ralph Norman of South Carolina, Representative Andy Oakes of Tennessee, Representative Gary Palmer of Alabama, Representative Scott Perry of Pennsylvania, Representative Bill Posey of Florida, Representative John Rose of Tennessee, Representative Matt Rosendale of Montana, Representative Chip Roy of Texas, Representative David Schweikart of Arizona. David's last name is spelled Schweikert. Representative Keith Self of Texas, Representative Victoria Spartz of Indiana, that's Spartz. Representative Claudia Tenney of New York, last name is Tenney. Representative William Timmons of South Carolina, Representative Jeff Van Drew of New Jersey, Representative Beth Van Doyne of Texas, that is Duyne, Representative Derek Van Orden of Wisconsin, Representative Mike Waltz of Florida, Representative Randy Weber of Texas, Representative Daniel Webster of Florida, Representative Bruce Westerman of Arkansas, Representative Roger Williams of Texas, and Representative Rudy Yakum, that's Yakym, of Indiana. These are all the representatives in the House of Representatives. Now we go to the Senate. Senator Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee, Senator Mike Braun of Indiana, Senator Katie Britt of Alabama, Senator Ted Budd of North Carolina, Senator Mike Crapo of Idaho, that's Crapo, Senator Deb Fischer of Nebraska, Senator Bill Hagerty of Tennessee, Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri, Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin, Senator Mike Lee of Utah, Senator Roger Marshall of Kansas, Senator Mark Wayne Mullen of Oklahoma, Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky, Senator Pete Ricketts of Nebraska, Senator James Risch of Idaho, Senator Eric Schmidt of Missouri, that's SCHMITT, Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina, and Senator Tommy Tuberville of Alabama. These are all the people that voted on giving FEMA additional aid here. These are all the Republicans here. These are the people that are on top of the mountain screaming that we need to be giving people, the victims of Helene, funding here in the time of help. But yet these people are voting against it, and Mike Johnson, who is a Republican and is also the Speaker of the House, will not bring his people back until after the election. Like, if you ask me, they're not taking it serious. They say, hey, we want to give victims of Hurricane Helene funding, but they don't want to do anything about it. And if they do, they just vote against it. So we need to vote these people out in November, because every last one of these people that I named are running for re-election. So we're going to go to article number 2. This comes from apnews.com. Title is called Idaho State Senator Tells Native American Candidate Go Back Where You Came From in Forum. This was written October 4th, 2024, updated at 9:42 p.m. So, Kendrick, Idaho. Tensions rose during a bipartisan forum this week after an audience question about discrimination reportedly led an Idaho state senator to angrily tell a Native American candidate to go back where you came from. Republican Senator Dan Foreman left the event early after the outburst and later denied making any racist comments in a Facebook post. He did not respond to a voice message from the Associated Press seeking comment. Trish Carter Goodhart, a Democratic candidate for the House District 6 seat and member of the Nez Perce tribe, PERC, said the blow-up left her shaken and thinking about security needs for future public events. It also forced some tough conversations with her 2 young children, Avery and Lavender, who were in attendance. Having conversations about racism with an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old is not something me and my husband Dane were prepared for, Carter Goodhart said on Friday. They've never seen a grown adult man have a meltdown like that. They were scared. I was scared. The event was held by Democratic and Republican precinct committee members from the small North Idaho town of Kendrick on Monday night. The Lewiston Tribune reported it was for House and Senate candidates from the local district, including Foreman, his Democratic opponent, Julia Parker, Republican Rep. Lori McCann, and her Democratic opponent Carter Goodhart. About an hour into the event, someone asked a question about a state bill addressing discrimination. The candidates were each given 2 minutes to answer, and when it was Carter Goodhart's turn, she pushed back on earlier comments that suggested discrimination is not a major issue in Idaho. She said state hate crime laws are weak, and noted that the neo-Nazi group Aryan Nations made northern Idaho its home base for many years. She also talked about being the only candidate there who was a person of color. I pointed out that just because someone hasn't personally experienced discrimination doesn't mean it's not happening, she said. I was making my statement, and then he shot up out of his seat and said, I'm so sick of your liberal beep. Why don't you go back to where you came from? The Nez Perce tribe has lived on the Columbia River Plateau in the Pacific Northwest for more than 11,500 years, including the area where Kendrick is located. The northern edge of its reservation, while only a small fraction of the tribe's historical territory, is less than 10 miles, 16 kilometers, from the Veterans of Foreign Wars Hall, where the forum was held. It was like slow motion, Carter Goodhart said. I just remember thinking, go back to where you came from. That's within miles of where this forum is taking place. We have literal plots of land that are being leased out to family farms nearby. In his Facebook post, Foreman called the incident a quintessential display of race baiting and said the Democratic attendees made personal attacks and proclaimed Idaho to be a racist state. Well, here is a newsflash for the lefties out there. There is no systemic racism in America or Idaho. Foreman said, Idaho is a great state, the best in the union. He then added an attack on supporters of abortion rights, saying, and furthermore, it is immoral and against the law of God to kill unborn babies in the womb. You do not have any right to murder the unborn. There is no such thing as your self-proclaimed woman's reproductive rights. There is no such body of rights in the state or federal constitutions, and we don't do designer rights in Idaho. During the exchange at the forum, Parker and McCann both said Foreman stood up and yelled after Carter Goodhart's response. I stood up and faced Foreman and tried to defuse what was going on, Parker said. McCann said Carter Goodhart's description of the incident matched her own recollection. Her statement is accurate, McCann told the Tribune. Carter Goodhart leaned over to me and said, where am I supposed to go? The event continued for about 20 minutes after Foreman left. Carter Goodhart says she found herself watching the only door, worried he would come back, and the female candidates checked on each other later. I really appreciate that about the people who are running, specifically Lori McCann, she said. She's my elder, and I appreciate her and her commitment to our community. We do have a big difference in our values and what we want to do for our communities, but she checked on me and I checked on her, and that was the right thing to do. More candidate forums are planned in coming weeks, Carter Goodhart said. Organizers for an upcoming League of Women's Voters event emailed Carter Goodhart on Friday to say police would be there as a precaution, she said, and the Idaho Secretary of State's office offered guidance about security measures her campaign can pay for. We've been told, it's not a bad idea to get security, she said, and we need to have honest discussions about race and discrimination and the inequalities and disparities that exist not only in Idaho, but across the USA. So I'm like, this was definitely gross for what the Idaho senator did, the Senator Dan Foreman. It's disgraceful to tell people to go back to the country you came from. Because somewhere down the timeline, a lot of the people that came to the U.S. here was not from the U.S. I bet if I were to trace the roots all the way back down to my ancestors, we didn't come from the USA. We came from outside the U.S. and we conquered this land. So to tell somebody to go back to their country is wrong. And then the last article that we're going to go over today is from Newsweek as well. Barack Obama hits swing states to stump for Kamala Harris as election nears. It was published on October 4th at 10:57 a.m. Former President Barack Obama is back on the campaign trail this timing helping Vice President Kamala Harris for the last 27 days of the election series. Obama's public campaign appearances will start next Thursday in Pittsburgh. Newsweek reached out to Obama's office as well as Harris' campaign for comment. Now that voting has begun, our focus is on persuading and mobilizing voters, especially in states with key races. Many of these races are likely to go down to the wire, and nothing should be taken for granted, Obama advisor Eric Schultz said in a statement to Politico. Schultz told NBC that Obama believes the stakes of this election could not be more consequential, and that is why he is doing everything he can to help elect Vice President Harris, Governor Walz, and Democrats across the country. Politico reported that Obama's work will include issuing additional fundraising emails in direct mail, recording candidates' specific ads, and traveling across the country for coordinated efforts. The aide said that the events that have featured Obama so far in this election cycle have generated over $76 million in contributions for the Democratic ticket. Last month, Obama and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton held separate fundraisers for Harris in Los Angeles. Obama has been active in Harris' campaign since she launched it in July after President Joe Biden withdrew from the race. He and his wife, former First Lady Michelle Obama, called Harris to endorse her, a video which was released that month. Michelle and I couldn't be prouder to endorse you and do everything we can to get you through this election and into the Oval Office, the former president told Harris. Harris added several Harris added several former Obama advisors to her team this summer, including David Plouffe, who managed Obama's first presidential campaign. Obama and Harris first met when the former president was seeking election to the Senate in 2004. A source told CNN, Obama has served as a sounding board for Harris for the past 20 years. At the Democratic National Convention, both Obamas expressed their support for Harris and encouraged Democrats to do their part to get her elected. During the second night of this convention, Obama said Harris would be focused on the country's problems instead of her own, and she wouldn't punish those who refused to kiss the ring or bend the knee. He framed former President Donald Trump as a whiny narcissist, which he is. Here's a 78-year-old billionaire who has not stopped whining about his problems since he rode down his golden escalator 9 years ago, Obama said of Trump. It has been a constant stream of gripes and grievances that's actually been getting worse now that he's afraid of losing to Kamala. He also told the crowd, do not boo Trump, but instead go out and vote during the 2024 election. There's the childish nicknames, the crazy conspiracy theories, the weird obsession with crowd sizes, he said, delivering the punchline as he gestured with his hand in a way that mirrored how Trump gesticulates. Obama's campaign work is not just for Harris either. On Friday, Obama endorsed Democratic Representative Elisa Slotkin in the Michigan race, starring in an ad for her. The video called Make You Proud has Obama discussing Slotkin's national security experience. In the Situation Room, Elisa delivered national security briefings on some of the toughest issues we were dealing with. That's why I sent Elisa to negotiate on my behalf, because she understood when to compromise and when to stand firm, Obama says in the ad, and it's why I nominated her to be an Assistant Secretary of Defense. Obama is set to record additional ads and robocalls for down-ballot candidates leading up to November 5th. His goals are to win the White House, keep the U.S. Senate, and take back the House of Representatives, Schultz said. And that's exactly what we are going to do November 5th, 2024. Not only are we going to maintain the presidency and the Senate, but we're going to gain more Democrats in the House of Representatives, and we're going to take this back, and we're going to right all the wrongs that the Republicans have done since they took the House of Representatives. This Congress that we have now is the least productive Congress because the do-nothing MAGA Republicans in the House of Representatives literally vote against their best interests. They scream they want funding to Florida, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, all these cities and states that have been affected by Helene, but they vote against it. They said they want infrastructure, but they vote against it. They said they wanted to fix the border here, and they voted against it because of Trump. I mean, like, we can't govern off of executive orders. Those are short-term fixes. They are not long-term fixes. The best way to govern a country is through legislation, following the rules and the processes to do so. I'm like, yes, there are issues with the border. I will admit there are issues with the border. And we could do our part into fixing it. That means giving additional funding to border security. That way they can hire more border controls. They can hire, they can get new technology that will basically let people know when people are crossing through the border outside of the, outside of zones. They can get so many different things here. They can get drones here that fly over the border with cameras, and that way the border security can see what's going on the other side of the border. These drones can go like 100, like 10, 20, 30 miles away and be able to do what it needs to do. It makes border patrol more prepared. We need to get more immigration judges here. That way it doesn't take 7, 10, 15, 20 years for people's asylum cases to be heard. If we were to get it down to a month's time to see if they qualify for asylum or don't qualify for asylum, people would not come here to immigrate as much as they are, because once they know that, hey, it's only going to take a month, most people are going to be like, hey, I better not get too settled down here just in case my asylum application gets rejected. Right now, what people seeking asylum are doing is like, oh, it takes them 7, 10, 15, 20 years. Yeah, I'm going to set my roots down here, because after 6 months of applying for asylum, they qualify for work permits, which means they can legally get a job. So I'm like, we need to do all kinds of things to help protect the border. I'm like, yeah, we should still we need to screen for people coming across the border. That's a given here. I'm like, things that would actually benefit here, because we're not going to hire immigration judges just to sit there and stamp approved on every application, because there are some bad people out in the world. There are. But we should make it a little bit more easy, but while at the same time making sure that we're keeping other people that shouldn't be in the country out. We don't need bad people. And I love immigrants. I've met a lot of these migrants here. Last October 2023, I brought some clothes over to migrants in downtown Chicago. And I shook a lot of their hands, and it was nice here. They were really polite, and it was awesome. But we need to all do our part here to help. And Trump shot down a bipartisan border bill. That border bill was a standalone bill. It had nothing in there. It was written by a Trump endorsed candidate. It was everything that conservatives wanted. It was everything that the conservatives wanted. But they shut it down because Donald Trump called members of Congress and told them not to pass the bill because he didn't want to give Joe Biden the win. And the fact that people want to now blame the vice president for everything, saying that, oh, it's Kamala inflation, it's Kamala's economy, it's Kamala's border. The vice president has no agenda. Every vice president we've had since the founding of this country, they've only had two jobs. Job one is to take over as president if something happens to the president. And job two is to preside over the Senate. They don't have an agenda. Why do you think when we just saw Walz and Vance debate this past Tuesday that they didn't come out with their own agenda? Because they don't have one. Their agenda, Walz and Vance's agenda, is to support the president's agenda. Vice presidents don't have agenda. What did Mike Pence do for Trump as vice president? What did Joe Biden do as vice president? What did the vice president do before that? Vice presidents have way less power than presidents. And even then, presidents of the United States of America still have a limited amount of power. Yeah, presidents can do executive orders, which again are short-term fixes. They're not long-term fixes, because once one president leaves and the next one comes in, that new president can then either choose to A, keep the executive order, or B, put those executive orders in the trash. So if we want to fix the border, we need to pass legislation and not executive orders. And on that note, I want to thank everybody for listening to my weekly podcast. It is Saturday around 11:41 p.m. my time. Peace.